Hey everyone, welcome back to another SAT math video. This is a question from the official practice test 5 from 2024, linked in the description below. The kinetic energy in joules of an object with mass 9 kilograms traveling at the speed of v meters per second is given by the function k, where k of v is equal to 9 over 2 times v squared. Which of the following is the best interpretation of k of 34 is equal to 5,202 in this context, right? So this question, you don't really need to do any math because the fundamental concept they're testing you on is interpreting functions, right? Interpreting functions. Okay, that's the fundamental concept they are going to be testing you on. You could even extend this further and be like, this is just SAT algebra, but the main thing they are testing you on is how to interpret functions in the real world. Okay, so first let's understand what this function is, right? We are basically given some function of the velocity of this object, right? We get the joules in terms of the velocity, right? So depending on the velocity, we will get a different number in joules, right? And how do we know that? Because when we see this k of v, right, we know that v, the velocity, is an input for this function, right? So that in turn tells us that any change in the velocity is going to cause a change in the total energy or joules, right? So that's one thing we need to understand, where when you have this function notation, our input is always going to be the thing in the parentheses, and our output is basically the uppercase letter or f of x, right? You might have seen it in terms like f of x or g of x. The point is that anytime you have some variable in the parentheses next to the actual function itself, right? That just basically denotes the input, right? So just a little helpful hint there, right? So let's read through the answer choices and see which one kind of match how they describe this function, right? And what is this function? This function is nothing more than the kinetic energy in joules based on the velocity, right? The input velocity, okay? So with that in mind, let's read the answer choices and eliminate some. First one, D, I can see right off the bat that D is a bad answer because it just has this random number that exists out of nowhere, right? Where does this number come from? How did they make this number? You don't even need to do any math for this question, right? So they just threw this number in to try and trick you. So instantly cross out D. All right, so now we're left with A, B, and C because these kind of have numbers that we're seeing in the problem itself, right? We see some 34s, we definitely see some 5202s, right? But look at number B, or letter B rather, at the object traveling at 340 meters per second has a kinetic energy of 5,202 joules. Again, this is just a way for them to trick you, right? Because we see a 34 here, you might instantly think, 340, that might be the right answer. Well, again, they're trying to trick you by putting in numbers that look the same, right? The very common SAT tactic. So you can instantly cancel that one out because, again, we're not doing any math in this question. We are just interpreting a function, right? So we just kind of need to read more than do math, right? And use a little bit of logic. So let's now look at A and C, right? The object traveling at 5,202 meters per second has a kinetic energy of 34 joules. Well, that kind of seems right? We have a 34 and a 5,002, but are they in the right places in this interpretation that they're giving us? Well, the answer is no, right? Because remember, our input is in the parentheses, right? So based off of this little equation that they're giving us, right, down here, we see that 34 is the input. And what is the input? The meters per second in of the object, right? So this would instantly be wrong because we know that this input is not 5,202. This input is 34. So C is also wrong, right? That leaves us only with A. And why is A right? Well, the input is correct, right? We have a velocity as our input that's matching the velocity input in the example they give us. And then also the total number of joules matches the total number of joules in this interpretation, right? So this interpretation A, is the answer. So that's all you need to know for this video. There was not a lot of math required, but more so they were testing your ability to interpret functions, right? That is what they were testing. And how did we do that? We just had to read the function very carefully and remember, what does the input value for the function do, right? Which one is the input and what does it do, right? We figured out that the velocity is the input, and that's honestly, we didn't even need to know what it does. We just need to kind of knew that the velocity is the input, and we had to use that to kind of eliminate the answers, right? We had to see which one of these numbers didn't look right, which one of these numbers seemed like they were just there to trick us, and then finally, after we eliminated those two options that were clearly there to kind of just mess us up, we then could eliminate the choices by actually reading the answers and then see which interpretation matched how the function actually is, right? So this concept can be a little confusing. Don't be discouraged if you didn't initially get it at first. It just takes a lot of practice. And if you need more practice problems, check out Khan Academy. They have a bunch of free problems that will really help you take your score to the next level. And there's some other fun links if you want to just get educated on some other stuff like coding and learning Hindi and Urdu. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, I will see you in the next video.